Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayana Goswami Maharaj, Srila Gurudev ki jai. Nitil Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashtatarashatashmad, Srila Bhaktivedanta Vaman Goswami Maharaj ki jai. Nitil Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashtatarashatashmad, Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Nitil Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashtatarashatashmad, Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Goswami Maharaj ki jai. Nitil Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashtatarashatashmad, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada ki jai. Ishta Mahā-Bhagavat Srila Goksharas Babaji Maharaj ki jai. Nitil Pravishta Vaishnav Sarvabhauma Srila Jagannathas Babaji Maharaj ki jai. Nitil Shri Rupanu Gauriya Guru Varga ki jai. Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jiva Gopal Padadash Raghunath Shara Goswami Prabhu ki jai. Shri Sarup Damodar Rai Ramanandari Shiva Parshad Vrinda ki jai. Namachay Shri Haridas Thakur ki jai. Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Shri Kshetra Mandala Gaura Mandala Vaja Mandala Mathura Vrindavan Dham ki jai. Sarva Avishta Pradata Giriraj Maharaj ki jai. Shri Radha Kund Shama Kund ki jai. Shri Muna Devi Ganga Devi ki jai. Shri Tulsi Maharani Vrinda Devi ki jai. Shri Bhakti Devi ki jai. Shri Purnamasi Yoga Maya ki jai. Shri Gopeshwar Mahadev ki jai. Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Samagata Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Shinitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bo. Dandavat Pranams Gargaraj Ji and Madhavi Didi and Ganga Devi. Hari Bo. Alright. So just back up to last chapter. By following the prescribed okay, so finally, after Pṛthu Maharaj was chasing Mother Earth, who is in the form of a cow all over the universe, finally she realized that she couldn't get away from him, and she turned around and, faced him. and then she said, by following. Oh, and then there's a bunch of, she gave arguments. There's arguments and counter arguments. She says, you are a knower of Dharma in the shelter of the surrendered. You are merciful. I am a poor sinless woman who protects all from drowning in the Garbhodak waters. And then Pṛthu says, yes, but despite your accepting your share, you didn't reciprocate. You didn't, you accepted your share of the sacrifices, but didn't, still you kept all your grains and everything, all the seeds and everything hidden. And so he said, I'll cut you to pieces and feed you to my citizens. A king may kill a cruel person. And then Pṛthu Devi, she says, I'm a part and parcel of you. Being the creator, how can you kill me? Now you are the maintainer. You're not a destroyer like Shiva. You have inconceivable plans and contrary energies. I am not nourishing your progeny to rectify them of their evil ways. If you kill me, charitable persons will lose fame. But seeing that these arguments that she made, that you're still not satisfied, she said, okay, by following the prescribed methods, anyone can achieve desired results, not otherwise. And she explains the reason, sorry, I'm doing a bad job of this, but she explains the reason behind hiding her seeds, that nobody has any devotion for, let's just look at it. One second. She says, she says, all the seeds, herbs, grains are being used by non-devotees devoid of spiritual activities. And I'm not being properly protected and respected by the kings like you. And she mentioned, with vain in mind, the earth also scolds his son, Pṛthu. She was unprotected because no sacrifices were being performed, and not respected because of the spread of irreligion. When Vain died, the place became filled with thieves. She devoured all the herbs and grains so that sacrifices may be started by Pṛthu in the future. So she says, all the grain seeds have been stored within me for a long time. Therefore, you should immediately retrieve them by the standard method prescribed by the acharyas and shaksharas, and which I will explain to you. If you desire to relieve the living entities with sufficient food, you should make arrangements for a suitable calf, a pot, and a milkman. Being very affectionate towards the calf, I'll produce the desired milk suitable for the living beings. Also, she requested that that Pṛthu makes the earth level so that rain will not just go down, but it will be, better for agriculture. So Pṛthu, hearing the pleasing and beneficial words of the earth, the king accepted them. He made Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam the calf and milked all the herbs and grains into his own hands. Other intelligent persons also took the essence out of the earth, following in the footsteps of Pṛthu and obtaining whatever they desired. And there's a note here, the earth is called Vasundhara because she holds all wealth. Vasu, wealth, dhara, one who holds. Vasundhara. Thus everyone regained from her the items they had lost in the absence of dharma during the reign of Vain. And afterwards, there was no king. And afterwards, when there was no king. The following table shows what various persons obtained what from the earth. So Pṛthu came. Pṛthu came as the milkman, and the calf was Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, and his pot was his hands. What he milked was herbs and grains. Then the sages came as the milkman, and they made Brihaspati the calf, and their pot were the senses, and the milk was Vedic hymns. Then the demigods made Indra the calf, and they milked. Their container was a golden pot, and they milked Soma, the heavenly nectar. And then the Daitas, they made Prahlad the calf, and they milked into an iron pot liquor. The Gandharvas and Apsaras made Vishvavasu the calf, and they milked. And into a lotus flower, they milked musical art and beauty. Pitara, what do you say? What do you call it? The forefathers. They made Aryama the calf, and they milked into an unbaked earthen pot, kavya. That's the foodstuff offered to the ancestors. The Siddhas made Kapila the calf, their pot was the sky, and they milked cities. Vidyadharas also, they milked Kapila, and into the sky they milked the art of flying. So the Siddhas made cities, and Vidyadharas the art of flying. Kim Purushas, they made Maya the calf, and they milked the mystic power of disappearing at will. The Yakshas, Rakshasas, Bhutas, Pishachas made Rudra the calf, and into a skull they milked beverages made of blood. Yikes. The snakes and scorpions made Takshak the calf, and into their mouths they milked poison. The cattle made Nandi the calf, and into the forest they milked grass. Carnivores made the lion the calf, and into the forest they milked flesh. The birds made Guru the calf, into their stomachs they milked insects and fruits. Trees made the banyan tree the calf, and they milked delicious juices. Mountains made the Himalayas the calf, and in the peaks of hills they milked minerals. The earth supplies everyone. In this way, King Pṛthu and all others not mentioned above created different types of calves and milked out the respective desirables. Thus, planet Earth supplied everyone their respective food. Pṛthu was very satisfied with the earth. Thus, he developed affection for her as if she were his own daughter. That's quite a change of feelings. After this, the powerful Pṛthu made the earth almost flat by breaking up the hills with the strength of his bow. For all the citizens of the state, King Pṛthu was as good as a father. He supplied proper subsistence and made suitable residences. He founded many villages, towns, cities, forts, residence for cowherdsmen, cowsheds, military camps, mines, agricultural towns, and mountain villages. Town and city planning began from the time of King Pṛthu. Before that, people lived here and there, without fear and according to their own convenience. Now, King Pṛthu initiated the performance of 100 Ashwamedha yajnas at Manu's place called Brahmā, where the Saraswati river flows towards the east. Indra could not tolerate these great sacrifices of Pṛthu, thinking that King Pṛthu would excel him. In Pṛthu's sacrifices, Lord Vishnu, who is Yagyapati, the master of all sacrifice, and Bhagavan Harir Ishvara, the supreme controller, Sarvatma, the supersoul of everyone, the teacher of the universe, the proprietor of all planets, he was personally present. Lord Vishnu was personally present in those yajnas. Brahmā, Shiva, and other demigods and their followers came along with him. Upon his appearance, the Gandharvas, Apsaras, and great sages praised him. The Lord was accompanied by the Siddhas, Vidyadharas, Daitas, Danavas, Yakshas, his chief associates Sunanda and Nanda, Kapila, Narad, Dattatreya, and the Kumaras, who were all very eager to serve the Lord. And various gifts were offered in that sacrifice. Earth supplied all desired objects, like the milk-producing Kamadhenu. Rivers supplied all kinds of tastes. Trees produced all types of honey and fruits. Cows supplied sufficient milk, curd, clarified butter, and other necessities. Oceans offered all types of jewels and pearls. Mountains offered 4 kinds of edibles. Planets and their lords offered various gifts. And now we're going to read about how Indra steals the sacrificial horse and creates heretics. We're on chapter 19. Let me just make sure everything's running okay. Dandavat pranams Raseshwari Mataji, Pramila Didi, Rup Manjari Didi, and Prajumna Prabhu, and Ladini Shakti. Wow, a lot of people today. All right. Oh man, it looks like my connection's not working again. What to do? Oh man, I don't know how to control this. Let me know if it's way too bad. Connecting. This is really frustrating. Okay, well, it looks like it's working somewhat. Oh, that's not too bad. Okay. 10. Iti chadhokshaje shasya Pṛtastu paramodayam asuyam. Okay. Rupanjari says it's fine. Asuyam bhagavan Indra pratighatam achikarat. King Pṛthu was dependent on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is known as Adhoksaj. Because King Pṛthu performed so many sacrifices, he was superhumanly enhanced by the mercy of the Supreme Lord. King Pṛthu's opulence, however, could not be tolerated by the King of Heaven, Indra, who tried to impede the progress of his opulence. Purport. In this verse, purport by Srila Prabhupada. In this verse, there are 3 significant purposes expressed in the words Adhoksaj, Bhagavan Indra, and Pṛthu. Maharaj Pṛthu is an incarnation of Vishnu, yet he is a great devotee of Lord Vishnu. Although an empowered incarnation of Lord Vishnu, he is nonetheless a living entity. As such, he must be a devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Although one is empowered by the Supreme Personality of Godhead and is an incarnation, he should not forget his eternal relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In Kali Yuga, there are many self-made incarnations, rascals, who declare themselves to be the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The words Bhagavan Indra indicate that a living entity can even be as exalted and as powerful as King Indra, for even King Indra is an ordinary living entity in this material world and possesses the 4 defects of the conditioned soul. King Indra is described herein as Bhagavan, which is generally used in reference to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In this case, however, King Indra is addressed as Bhagavan because he has so much power in his hand. He has so much power in his hands. Despite his becoming Bhagavan, he is envious of the incarnation of God, Pṛthu Maharaj. The defects of material life are so strong that due to contamination, King Indra becomes envious of an incarnation of God. We should try to understand, therefore, how a conditioned soul becomes fallen. The opulence of King Pṛthu was not dependent on material conditions. As described in this verse, he was a great devotee of Adhokshaj. The word Adhokshaj indicates the personality of Godhead, who is beyond the expression of mind and words. However, the Supreme Personality of Godhead appears before the devotee in his original form of eternal bliss and knowledge. The devotee is allowed to see the Supreme Lord face to face, although the Lord is beyond the expression of our senses and beyond our direct perception. Charamena shameda dhena yajamane yajushpatim vaine yagya pashum spardham apovahati rohita. When Pṛthu Maharaj was performing the last horse sacrifice, Ashwamedha Yagya, King Indra, invisible to everyone, stole the horse intended for sacrifice. He did this because of his great envy of King Pṛthu. Purport. King Indra is known as Shatakratu, which indicates that he has performed 100 horse sacrifices, Ashwamedha Yagyas. We should know, however, that the animals sacrificed in the yajna were not killed. If the Vedic mantras were properly pronounced during the sacrifice, the animals sacrificed would come out again with a new life. That is the test for a successful yajna. When King Pṛthu was performing 100 yajnas, Indra became very envious because he did not want anyone to excel him. Being an ordinary living entity, he became envious of King Pṛthu, and making himself invisible, he stole the horse and thus impeded the yajna performance. Tamatrir Bhagavan Aikshat Tvaramana Vihayasa Amuktam Eva Pakhandam Yodharme Dharma Vibrama. When King Indra was taking away the horse, he dressed himself to appear as a liberated person. Actually, this dress was a form of cheating, for it falsely created an impression of religion. When Indra went into outer space in this way, the great sage Atri saw him and understood the whole situation. Purport. The word pakhanda used in this verse is sometimes pronounced pashanda. Both of these words indicate an impostor who presents himself as a very religious person, but in actuality is sinful. Just a little interesting fact in this. I have the original edition, PDF of the original first edition of Kalyana Kalpataru, and all the songs that we normally sing of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he wrote Pashanda everywhere, like calling himself a Pashanda everywhere, like in every song almost. And but then later on they were changed, maybe by himself or maybe by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And so now we don't see that word as much. Sometimes you might see it, but it's a lot more rare. Indra took up the saffron-colored dress as a way of cheating others. This saffron dress has been misused by many impostors who present themselves as liberated persons or incarnations of God. In this way, people are cheated. As we have mentioned many times, the conditioned soul has a tendency to cheat. Therefore, this quality is also visible in a person like King Indra. It is understood that even King Indra is not liberated from the clutches of material contamination. Thus the words amuktam, eva, meaning as if he were liberated, are used. The saffron dress worn by a sannyasi announces to the world that he has renounced all worldly affairs and is simply engaged in service to the Lord. Such a devotee is actually a sannyasi, or a liberated person. In Bhagavad Gita 6.1 it is said, Anashrita karma phalam karyam karma karotiya sa sannyasi cha yogi cha na niragnir na chakriya. One who is unattached to the fruits of his work and who works as he is obligated in the renounced is in the renounced order of life, and he is a true mystic, not he who lights no fire and performs no work. In other words, One who offers the results of his activities to the Supreme Personality of Godhead is actually a sannyasi and yogi. Cheating sannyasis and yogis have existed since the time of Pṛthu Maharaja's sacrifice. This cheating was very foolishly introduced by King Indra. In some ages, such cheating is very prominent, and in other ages, not so prominent. It is the duty of a sannyasi to be very cautious, because as stated by Lord Chaitanya, sannyasira alpa chidra sarva loki gai. A little spot in a sannyasi's character will be magnified by the public. CC Madhya 1251. Therefore, unless one is very sincere and serious, he should not take up the order of sannyas. One should not use this order as a means to cheat the public. It is better not to take up sannyas in this age of Kali because provocations are very strong on this age. Only a very exalted person advanced in spiritual understanding should attempt to take up sannyas. One should not adopt this order as a means of livelihood or for some material purpose. Atrina chodito hantum Pṛthu putro maharata andvatavata shankrudas tishta tishteti cha bravit. When the son of King Pṛthu was informed by Atri of King Indra's trick, he immediately became very angry and followed Indra to kill him, calling, "Wait, wait!" Purport. The words tishta tishta are used by a kshatriya when he challenges his enemy. When fighting, a kshatriya cannot flee from the battlefield. However, when a kshatriya out of cowardice flees from the battlefield, showing his back to his enemy, he is challenged with the words tishta tishta. A real kshatriya does not kill his enemy from behind, nor does a real kshatriya turn his back on the battlefield. Doesn't tishta like get up, stand up, don't run away. According to kshatriya principle and spirit, one either attains victory or dies on the battlefield. Although King Indra was very exalted, being the king of heaven, he became degraded due to his stealing the horse intended for sacrifice. Therefore he fled without observing the kshatriya principles, and the son of Pṛthu had to challenge him with the words tishta tishta. Tam tadrisha kritam viksha mene dharmam sharirinam jatilam bhasmanachanam tasmai banam namuchanti. King Indra was fraudulently dressed as a sannyasi, having knotted his hair on his head and smeared ashes all over his body. Upon seeing such dress, the son of King Pṛthu considered Indra a religious man and a pious sannyasi. Therefore, he did not release his arrows. Vada nivritam tam bhuyo hanta vetrir achodayat jahi yagyahanam tata mahendra vipudhatamam. When Atri Muni saw the son of King Pṛthu did not kill Indra but returned deceived by him, Atri Muni again instructed him to kill the heavenly king, because he thought that Indra had become the lowliest of all demigods due to his impeding the execution of King Pṛthu's sacrifice. Evam vaina sutta prokta stvaramana vihayasa anvadravar abhikrudo ravanam gritradiva. Being thus informed, the grandson of King Vena immediately began to follow Indra, who was fleeing through the sky in great haste. He was very angry with him, and he chased him just as the king of the vultures chased Ravan. So Swamrupam chataditva tasma antarhita swarat virasva pashamadaya pituryagyam upeyivan. When Indra saw that the son of Pṛthu was chasing him, he immediately abandoned his false dress and left the horse. Indeed, he disappeared from that very spot, and the great hero, the son of Maharaj Pṛthu, returned the horse to his father's sacrificial arena. Tattasya charbutam karma vikchakshya paramarshaya Namadheyam tatustasmai Vijitashva iti Prabho. My dear Lord Vidura, when the great sages observed the wonderful prowess of the son of King Pṛthu, they all agreed to give him the name Vijitashva. 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 He who has won the horse. Ashva means horse, Vijita, he who has won the horse. Upasrijatamasti vram jaharashvam punarhari chashala yupataschano hiranya rashanang vibhu. My dear Vidura, Indra, being the king of heaven and very powerful, immediately brought a dense darkness upon the sacrificial arena. Covering the whole scene in this way, he again took away the horse, which was chained with golden shackles near the wooden instrument where animals were sacrificed. Atri sandarshayamasa tvaramanam vihayasa kapala katvanga dharam vironainam abhadata. The great sage Atri again pointed out to the son of King Pṛthu that Indra was fleeing through the sky. The great hero, the son of Pṛthu, chased him again, but when he saw that Indra was carrying in his hand a staff with a skull on the top, and was again wearing the dress of a sannyasi, he still chose not to kill him. Atrina choditas tasmai santate vishikam rusha soshvam rupam chatadhitva tastav antarhita swarat. When the great sage Atri again gave directions, the son of King Pṛthu became very angry and placed an arrow on his bow. Upon seeing this, King Indra immediately abandoned the false dress of a sannyasi and, giving up the horse, made himself invisible. Virashchashvam upadaya pitriyagyam atavrajat taravadyam hare rupam jagrihur jnanadurbala. Then the great hero Vijitashva, the son of King Pṛthu, again took the horse and returned to his father's sacrificial arena. Since that time, certain men with a poor fund of knowledge have adopted the dress of a false sannyasi. It was King Indra who introduced this. Purport. Since time immemorial, the sannyasa order has carried the Tridanda. Later, Shankaracharya introduced the Ekadandi sannyas. A Tridandi sannyasi is a Vaishnava sannyasi, and an Ekadandi sannyasi is a Mayavadi sannyasi. There are many other types of sannyasis who are not approved by Vedic rituals. A type of pseudo-sannyas was introduced by Indra when he tried to hide himself from the attack of Vijitashva, the great son of King Pṛthu. Now there are many types of sannyasis. Some of them go naked, and some of them carry a skull and trident, generally known as a kapalik. All of them were introduced under some meaningless circumstances, and those who have a poor fund of knowledge accept these false sannyasis and their pretenses, although they are not bona fide guides to spiritual advancement. At the present moment, some missionary institutions, without referring to the Vedic rituals, have introduced some sannyasis who engage in sinful activities. The sinful activities forbidden by the Shastras are illicit sex, intoxication, meat eating, and gambling. These so-called sannyasis indulge in all these activities. They eat meat and flesh, fish, eggs, and just about everything. They sometimes drink with the excuse that without alcohol, fish, and meat, it is impossible to remain in the cold countries near the Arctic zone. These sannyasis introduce all these sinful activities in the name of serving the poor, and consequently, poor animals are cut to pieces and go into the bellies of these sannyasis. As described in the following verses, such sannyasis are pakhandis. Vedic literature states that a person who puts Lord Narayan on the level with Lord Shiva or Lord Brahmā immediately becomes a pakhandi. As stated in the Puranas, Yastu Narayanam Devam Brahma Rudradi Daivatai Samatvenaiva Viksheta Sapashandi Bhavedruvam. In Kali Yuga, the pakhandis are very prominent. However, Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has tried to kill all these pakhandis by introducing his Sankirtan movement. Those who take advantage of this Sankirtan movement of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness will be able to save themselves from the influence of these pakandis. Yani rupani jagrihe indra haya jikirshaya tani papasya khandani lingam khandam ihochate. Yikes. What does that say? Oh, never mind. Okay. Whatever different forms Indra assumes as a mendicant because of his desire to seize the horse were symbols of atheistic philosophy. Purport. According to Vedic civilization, sannyasa is one of the essential items in the program of the Varna Ashram institution. One should accept sannyasa according to the parampara system of the acharyas. At the present moment, however, many so-called sannyasis or mendicants have no understanding of God consciousness. Such sannyas was introduced by Indra because of his jealousy of Maharaj Pṛthu, and what he introduced is again appearing in this age of Kali. Practically none of the sannyasis in this age are bona fide. No one can introduce any new system into the Vedic way of life. If one does so out of malice, he is known as a pashandi, or an atheist. In the Vaishnava Tantra it is said, Yastu Narayanam Deva Brahma Rudradi Daivatai Samatvenaiva Viksheta Sa Pashandi Bhavedruvam. Although it is forbidden, there are many pashandis who coin terms like Daridra Narayan and Swami Narayan, although not even such demigods as Brahma and Shiva can be equal to Narayan. There's a line missing here. Database. Oops, sorry, spaced out. Okay. Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. I should do this before I start class. Chapter 19, verses 20-something. There it is, 24-25. Evam indre haratyashvam vainya yagya jigangshaya tat grihita vrishishteshu pakandeshu matir naranam dharma ityupadharmeshu nagna rakta patadishu prayena sajate prantya peshaleshu chavagmishu. In this way, King Indra, in order to steal the horse from King Pṛthu's sacrifice, adopted several orders of sannyas. Some sannyasis go naked, and sometimes they wear red garments and pass under the name of a kapalik. These are simply symbolic representations of their sinful activities. These so-called sannyasis are very much appreciated by sinful men because they are all godless atheists and very expert in putting forward arguments and reasons to support their case. We must know, however, that they are only passing as adherents of religion and are not so in fact. Unfortunately, bewildered persons accept them as religious, and being attracted to them, they spoil their life. Purport. As stated in Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, men in this age of Kali are short-lived, devoid of spiritual knowledge, and susceptible to accept false religious systems due to their unfortunate condition. Thus, they always remain mentally disturbed. The Vedic Shastras practically prohibit the adoption of sannyas in the age of Kali because less intelligent men may accept the sannyas order for cheating purposes. Actually, the only religion is the religion of surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We must serve the Lord in Krishna consciousness. All other systems of sannyas and religion are actually not bona fide. In this age, they are simply passing for religious systems. This is most regrettable. Tare Bhigyaya Bhagavan Pṛthu Parakrama Indraya Kupito Banam Adato Dhyatakarmuka. Maharaj Pṛthu, who is celebrated as very powerful, immediately took up his bow and arrows and prepared to kill Indra himself. because Indra had introduced such irregular sannyas orders. Purport. It is the duty of the king not to tolerate the introduction of any irreligious systems. Since King Pṛthu was an incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, certainly his duty was to cut down all kinds of irreligious systems. Following in his footsteps, all heads of state should themselves be bona fide representatives of God and should cut down all irreligious systems. Unfortunately, they are cowards who declare a secular state. Such a mentality is a way of compromising religious and irreligious systems. But because of this, citizens are generally becoming uninterested in spiritual advancement. Thus, the situation deteriorates to such an extent that human society becomes hellish. Tamritvija Shakravadabhisantitam Vichaksha dushpreksyan asahya ranghasan Nivarayang asur aho mahamate Nayujate tranya vada prachoditat. When the priests and all the others saw Maharaj Pṛthu very angry and prepared to kill Indra, they requested him, "O great soul, do not kill him, for only sacrificial animals can be killed in sacrifice. Such are the directions given by Shastra." Purport. Animal killing is intended for different purposes. It tests the proper pronunciation of Vedic mantras, and an animal being put into the sacrificial fire should not come out with a new life. Did I say not? Say should come out with a new life. No one should ever be killed in a sacrifice meant for the satisfaction of Lord Vishnu. How then could Indra be killed when he is actually worshipped in the yajna and accepted as part and parcel of the Supreme Personality of Godhead? Therefore, the priests requested King Pṛthu not to kill him. Vayam marutvantam ihartanashanam. God, how do you do that? Vayamahe tvachras vasahatam visham ayatayamo pahavar anantaram prahasya rajan juhavamate hitam. Dear King, Indra's powers are already reduced due to his attempts to impede the execution of your sacrifice. We shall call him by Vedic mantras which were never before used, and certainly he will come. Thus, by the power of our mantra, we shall cast him into the fire because he is your enemy. Wait a second, they just asked him not to kill him, but then they're going to kill him themselves. Anyhow. Purport. By chanting the Vedic mantras properly in a sacrifice, one can perform many wonderful things. In Kali Yuga, however, there are no qualified Brahmins who can chant the mantras properly. Consequently, no attempt should be made to perform such big sacrifices. In this age, the only sacrifice recommended is the Sankirtan movement. Ityamantra kratupatim vidurasyardvijorusha Srugastan juhavato bheta swayambhu pratyashetata. My dear Vidura, after giving the king this advice, the priest who had been engaged in performing the sacrifice called for Indra, the king of heaven, in a mood of great anger. When they were just ready to put the oblation in the fire, Lord Brahmā appeared on the scene and forbade them to start the sacrifice. Navadyo bhavatam indro yadyagyo bhagavatanu yam jigam sata yagena yasishtas tanavasura. Lord Brahmā addressed them thus: My dear sacrificial performers, you cannot kill Indra, the king of heaven. It is not your duty. You should know that Indra is as good as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Indeed, he is one of the most powerful assistants of the Personality of Godhead. You are trying to satisfy all the demigods by performance of this yajna, but you should know that all these demigods are but parts and parcels of Indra, the king of heaven. How then can you kill him in this great sacrifice? Tamidam pashyata maha dharma vyati karam dija indrenanushtitam ragya karmaitar vijikansata. In order to make trouble and impede the performance of King Pṛthu's sacrifice, King Indra has adopted some means that in the future will destroy the clear path of religious life. I draw your attention to this fact. If you oppose him any further, he will further misuse his power and introduce many other irreligious systems. Pṛthu kirte prator bhuya tarhye kona shata kratu alam te kratu svishtar yad bhavan moksha dharma vid. Let there be only 99 sacrificial performances for Maharaj Pṛthu, Lord Brahma concluded. Lord Brahma then turned towards Maharaj Pṛthu and informed him that since he was thoroughly aware of the path of liberation, what was the use in performing more sacrifices? Purport. Lord Brahma came down to pacify King Pṛthu regarding his continual performance of 100 sacrifices. King Pṛthu was determined to perform 100 sacrifices, and King Indra took this very seriously because Indra himself was known as the performer of 100 sacrifices. Just as it is the nature of all living entities within this material world to become envious of their competitors, King Indra, although king of heaven, was also envious of King Pṛthu, and therefore wanted to stop him from performing 100 sacrifices. Actually, there was great competition, and King Indra, to satisfy his senses, began to invent so many irreligious systems to obstruct King Pṛthu. To stop these irreligious inventions, Lord Brahma personally appeared in the sacrificial arena. As far as Maharaj Pṛthu was concerned, he was a great devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, it was not necessary for him to perform the prescribed Vedic ritualistic ceremonies. Such ceremonies are known as karma, and there is no need for a devotee in the transcendental position to execute them. As the ideal king, however, it was King Pṛthu's duty to perform sacrifices. A compromise was therefore to be worked out. By the blessings of Lord Brahma, King Pṛthu would become more famous than King Indra. Thus, Pṛthu's determination to perform 100 sacrifices was indirectly fulfilled by the blessings of Lord Brahma. Naivatmane mahendraya roshama hartumarhasi ubhavapi bhadraante uttama shloka vigraho. Lord Brahma continued, let there be good fortune to both of you, for you and King Indra are both part and parcel of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, you should not be angry with King Indra, who is non-different from you. Masmin Maharaj kritas machitan nashamayasmad vaja adritatma yadhyayato daivahatam nukartum manotirushtam vishate tamundam. My dear king, do not be agitated and anxious because your sacrifices have not been properly executed due to providential impediments. Kindly take my words with great respect. We should always remember that if something happens by providential arrangements, we should not be very sorry. The more we try to rectify such reversals, the more we enter into the darkest region of materialistic thought. Purport. Sometimes the saintly or very religious person also has to meet with reversals in life. Such incidents should be taken as providential. Although there may be sufficient cause for being unhappy, one should avoid counteracting such reversals. For the more we become implicated in rectifying such reversals, the more we enter into the darkest regions of material anxiety. Lord Krishna has also advised us in this connection. We should tolerate things instead of becoming agitated. Kratur viramatamesha deveshu duravagraha dharma vyakti karo yatra pakandar indra nirmitai. Lord Brahma continued, stop the performance of these sacrifices, for they have induced Indra to introduce so many irreligious aspects. You should know very well that even amongst the demigods, there are many unwanted desires. Purport. There are many competitors in ordinary business affairs. and Karma Kanda chapters of the Vedas sometimes cause competition and envy amongst karmis. A karmi must be envious because he wishes to enjoy material pleasures to their fullest extent. That is the material disease. Consequently, there is always competition amongst karmis, either in ordinary business affairs or in the performance of yajna. Lord Brahma's purpose was to end the competition between Lord Indra and Maharaj Pṛthu. Because Maharaj Pṛthu was a great devotee and incarnation of God, he was requested to stop the sacrifices so that Indra might not further introduce irreligious systems, which are always followed by criminal-minded people. Ebirindro prasangshrishtay pakandar haribir janam riyamanam vichakshvainam yaste yagya durgashvamut. Just see how Indra, the king of heaven, was creating a disturbance in the midst of the sacrifice by stealing the sacrificial horse. These attractive, simple activities he has introduced will be carried out by the people in general. Purport. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 3.21, Yadyadacharati shreshtas tattarevetaro jana sayat brahmanam kurute lokastar anuvartate. Whatever action is performed by a great man, common men follow in his footsteps. And whatever standard he sets by exemplary acts, all the world pursues. For his own sense gratification, King Indra thought to defeat Maharaj Pṛthu in the performance of 100 horse sacrifices. Consequently, he stole the horse and hid himself amid so many irreligious personalities, taking on the false guise of a sannyasi. Such activities are attractive to the people in general. Therefore, they are dangerous. Lord Brahma thought that instead of allowing Indra to further introduce such irreligious systems, it would be better to stop the sacrifice. A similar stance was taken by Lord Buddha when people were overly engrossed in the animal sacrifices recommended by Vedic instructions. Lord Buddha had to introduce the religion of non-violence by contradicting the Vedic sacrificial instructions. Actually, in the sacrifices, the slaughtered animals were given a new life, but people without such powers were taking advantage of such Vedic rituals and unnecessarily killing poor animals. Therefore, Lord Buddha had to deny the authority of the Vedas for the time being. One should not perform sacrifices that will induce reversed orders. It is better to stop such sacrifices. As we have repeatedly explained, due to the lack of qualified Brahminical priests in Kali Yuga, it is not possible to perform the ritualistic ceremonies recommended in the Vedas. Consequently, the Shastras instruct us to perform the Sankirtan Yajna. By the Sankirtan sacrifice, the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his form of Lord Chaitanya will be satisfied and worshipped. The entire purpose of performing sacrifices is to worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu. Lord Vishnu, or Lord Krishna, is present in his form of Lord Chaitanya. Therefore, people who are intelligent should try to satisfy him by performing Sankirtan Yajna. This is the easiest way to satisfy Lord Vishnu in this age. People should take advantage of the injunctions in different shastras concerning sacrifices in this age and not create unnecessary disturbances during the sinful age of Kali. In Kali Yuga, men all over the world are very expert in opening slaughterhouses for killing animals, which they eat. If the old ritualistic ceremonies were observed, people would be encouraged to kill more and more animals. In Kolkata, there are many butcher shops which keep a deity of the goddess Kali, and animal eaters think it proper to purchase animal flesh from such shops in hope that they are eating the remnants of food offered to the goddess Kali. They do not know that the goddess Kali never accepts non-vegetarian food because she is the chaste wife of Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva is also a great Vaishnava and never eats non-vegetarian food, and the goddess Kali accepts the remnants of food left by Lord Shiva. Therefore, there is no possibility of her eating flesh or fish. Such offerings are accepted by the associates of goddess Kali, known as bhutas, pishachas, and rakshasas, and those who take the prasad of goddess Kali in the shape of flesh or fish are not actually taking the prasad left by goddess Kali, but the food left by the bhutas and pishachas. Scary. My God, better just eat whatever meat than meat offered to Kali. Bhavan paritratum Bhavan paritratum ihavatirno dharmang jananam samayanurupam vinapacharad avaluptamadya tadehato vishnu kalasivanya. O King Pṛthu, son of Vain, you are the part and parcel expansion of Lord Vishnu. Due to the mischievous activities of King Vain, religious principles were almost lost. At the opportune moment, you descended as the incarnation of Lord Vishnu. Indeed, for the protection of religious principles, you have appeared from the body of King Vain. Purport. The way in which Lord Vishnu kills the demons and protects the faithful is mentioned in Bhagavad Gita 4.8. Paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya tadushkritam dharma samstapanarthaya sambhavami yuge yuge. In order to deliver the pious and to annihilate the miscreants, as well as to re-establish the principles of religion, I advent myself millennium after millennium. In two hands, Lord Vishnu always carries a club and a chakra to kill demons. In his other two hands, he holds a conch shell and a lotus to give protection to his devotees. When his incarnation is present on this planet or in this universe, the Lord kills the demons and protects his devotees simultaneously. Sometimes the Lord of Vishnu appears in his person as Lord Krishna or Lord Ram. All of these appearances are mentioned in the Shastras. Sometimes he appears as a Shaktivesh avatar like Buddha. As explained before, these Shaktivesh avatars are incarnation of Vishnu's power invested in a living entity. I didn't know Buddha was a Shaktivesh avatar. Living entities are also part and parcel of Lord Vishnu, but they are not as powerful. Therefore, when a living entity descends as an incarnation of Vishnu, he is especially empowered by the Lord. When King Pṛthu is described as an incarnation of Lord Vishnu, it should be understood that he is a Shaktivesh avatar, part and parcel of Lord Vishnu, and is specifically empowered by him. Any living beings acting as the incarnation of Lord Vishnu is thus empowered by Lord Vishnu to preach the bhakti cult. Such a person can act like Lord Vishnu and defeat demons by arguments, and preach the bhakti cult exactly according to the principles of Shastra. As indicated in Bhagavad Gita, whenever we find someone extraordinary preaching the bhakti cult, we should know that he is especially empowered by Lord Vishnu or Lord Krishna. Yeah, and who preached the bhakti cult more than Srila Prabhupada? As confirmed in Chaitanya Charitamrita Antya 7.11, Krishna Shakti Vina Nahe Tar Pravartan. One cannot explain the glories of the holy name of the Lord without being specifically empowered by him. If one criticizes or finds fault with such an empowered personality, one is to be considered an offender against Lord Vishnu and is punishable. Even though such offenders may address as Vaishnavas with false tilak and mala, they are never forgiven by the Lord if they offend a pure Vaishnava. There are many instances of this in the Shastras. What verse are we reading up to? Let me check really quick. 38. Okay, we're ending with this verse here. Satam vimishtasya bhavam prajapate sankalpanam vishva srijam pipi prihi aintrim chamayam upadharma mataram prachanda pakanda patam prabho jahi. What is that word? Pipi, that is a funny word. Pipi prihi. Just fulfilled. Interesting. O protector of the people in general, please consider the purpose of your being incarnated by Lord Vishnu. Sorry, I messed up when I read that. Let me read that again. O protector of the people in general, please consider the purpose of your being incarnated by Lord Vishnu. The irreligious principles created by Indra are but mothers of so many unwanted religions. Please therefore stop these imitations immediately. Purport. Lord Brahmā addresses King Pṛthu as Prajapate just to remind him of his great responsibility in maintaining the peace and prosperity of the citizens. Maharaj Pṛthu was empowered by the Supreme Personality of Godhead for this purpose only. It is the duty of the ideal king to see that the people are properly executing religious principles. Lord Brahmā especially requested King Pṛthu to confer the pseudo-religious principles produced by King Indra. In other words, it is the duty of the state or king to put a stop to pseudo-religious systems produced by unscrupulous persons. Originally, a religious principle is one given by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and it comes through the channel of disciplic succession in two forms. Lord Brahmā requested Pṛthu Maharaj to desist from his unnecessary competition with Indra, who was determined to stop Pṛthu Maharaj from completing 100 yagyas. Instead of creating adverse reactions, it was better for Maharaj Pṛthu to stop the yagyas in the interest of his original purpose as an incarnation. This purpose was to establish good government and set things in the right order. Alright, so that's all for today. Tomorrow, there's just couple more verses.
It's 8 o'clock.
Where is it? One second. I'm just looking at this. Okay. Pṛthu sacrifices his ambition of performing the 100th yajna, and everyone assembled was satisfied. Just 5 verses anyhow. I don't want to go over time too much. And then tomorrow we will read Lord Vishnu's appearance in the sacrificial arena of Maharaj Pṛthu. Right. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Gaur Hari Bol. Jai Shri Guru Gauranga Gandhari Giridhari Shri Shri Radha Vinod Bihari Ju ki Jai, Shri Govinda Gopinath Madan Mohan Ju ki Jai, Nikhil Vishnu Vishnupad Ashtatara Shatashmad Shala Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Gosai Maharaj Shala Gurudev ki Jai, Nikhil Vishnu Vishnupad Ashtatara Shatashmad Shala Bhakti Vedanta Vaman Gosai Maharaj ki Jai, Nikhil Vishnu Vishnupad Ashtatara Shatashmad Shala Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Shala Prabhupada ki Jai, Nitil Vishnu Vishnupad Ashtatara Shatashmad Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Gosai Maharaj ki Jai, Nitil Vishnu Vishnupad Ashtatara Shatashmad Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Gosai Prabhupada ki Jai, Nitil Vishnu Bhāgavatam Srila Gokshwaras Babaji Maharaj ki Jai, Shri Rupano Gauriya Guru Varga ki Jai, Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath, Shri Jeev Gopal Bhattadasa Raghunath Sharda Gosai Prabhu ki Jai, Shri Sarup Damodar Rai Ramanandari Shiva Parshad Vrinda ki Jai, Namacharya Shri Haridas Thakur ki Jai, Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki Jai, Shri Kshetra Mandala Gaura Mandala Braja Mandala Mathura Vrindavan Dham ki Jai, Sarva Avishta Pradata Giriraj Maharaj ki Jai, Shri Radha Kunda Shama Kund ki Jai, Shri Muna Devi Ganga Devi ki Jai, Shri Tulsi Maharani Vrinda Devi ki Jai, Shri Bhakti Devi ki Jai, Shri Purnamasi Yoga Maya ki Jai, Shri Gopeshwar Mahadev ki Jai, Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki Jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki Jai, Samagata Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki Jai, Shri King Pṛthu ki Jai, Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki Jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki Jai, Grantaraj Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam ki Jai, Shri Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol. Vrindaya Tulsi Devaya Priyaya Keshavascha Krishna Bhakti Pradadevi Satyavataya Namo Namaha Vancha Kalpatarubhyashta Kripa Sindhubhyaiva Cha Patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Dandavat pranams, Prajumna Prabhu, Madhavi Didi, Rup Manjari Didi, Raseshwari Mataji, Indira Mataji, who else? Gargaraji, Ganga Didi, Pramila Didi, Ladini Shakti, Dandavat pranams to all of you. Haribol. Oh, and we're almost finished with this book here. And then we'll be on the last part. This is the part... Yeah, this is part 2, and soon we'll be on part 3, the last part. Where are we now? Okay, we're on verse 38. Okay. Oh, wow, we're very close to the end. Oh my god. We're only like 3 pages. 3 pages until the end of this book. Only 500 more words. I remember seeing that. There's just, yeah, so 500 words, we're done with this, and then we'll begin the last book. And we'll be done soon. And then we'll start the 5th canto. All right, Haribol. I think maybe we'll finish this 4th canto within this month. And we can begin the 5th canto by June. I don't know, we'll see.